Do you come to Milwaukee often?
Actually, it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land. I think one of the most interesting aspects of Milwaukee is the fact that it's the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors.
Does this guy know how to party or what?
You heard it here first.
You're listening to The Rundown Live with Kriston Harris and Mike McChesney. The destroyer of fake news.
So this religious Pharisee comes to test Jesus and argue with him, as religious people always do. And he comes to Jesus and he says, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment?" And Jesus says, "Love the Lord God with all your heart, love God with all of your mind, love God with all of your soul, love God with all of your strength." And the second one is love your neighbor as yourself. I can just imagine the religious person just scratching his head because he probably had no idea that the whole foundation of it all was based on love. And if we're not loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves and getting rid of the self-hatred, then we can't love our friends or neighbors or our family correctly. And if we're not loving God and leaving him out, then the love that we have for ourselves can become polluted, as with other people, loving other people. So it all starts with learning to love God and going on that journey of discovery I like to talk about. But then it could become like, so does that just sound like a duty that he's saying love God with all of your strength? It's all on me. It becomes like is it a religious duty that I'm doing this? But if you turn it around and ask, why would Christ be saying that? Turn it around, because first, God has loved me with all of his heart, with all of his strength, with all of his soul, with all of his mind. And God has loved you with all of his whole being. And so he's only asking us to do.
And that's why Satanists want you to believe that they worship Satan. It's because they don't. True Satanists understand that we are one consciousness, expressed through different bodies. God is the I am within us, a pure self-awareness that exists beyond our form, beyond our thoughts, and beyond our identity. It is the absolute source consciousness. From this source consciousness, consciousness localizes itself and generates perspective. This localization is what we call the mind. Through it, experience becomes possible. Satan enters symbolically as a misidentification with our consciousness. Instead of recognizing itself as the I am, God consciousness, Satanists identify with the ego, the personality, the physical body. Satanism is the elevation of the separate self, consciousness attempting to become its own version of God within a limited personal identity. Satanists study the mind, consciousness, conceal that knowledge and use it for personal power and status at the expense of others. They rely on people's ignorance of their own inner power. At the higher levels, they promote the idea that they are worshipping Satan to preserve influence and control and stay psychologically one step ahead.
So the President of the United States just went on True Social and said that he is the singular decider if they go to Iran or not for war. So that's good, bomb.
If you take the word Yahweh and flip it on its side, it is the human body. The word Yahweh translates to I am that I am. Yahweh contains 4 letters, each letter representing one of the 4 elements. The 4 elements represent the 4 bodies of human consciousness. Fire, the spirit, willpower; air, the mind, thought; water, emotion; and earth, the physical body, actions. When you inhale, it sounds like YH, and when you exhale, it sounds like WH. H is the letter of breath, ha. Yahweh is not talking about a God in the sky. Yahweh is the name of the God inside the self, because we are all one singular consciousness, experiencing this same consciousness in a different physical body. We are all expressions of Yahweh. We are the divine manifesting itself in the 4 different bodies of consciousness. The page we use today in this video was taken from the Book of Symbolism.
If you're going to say the Satanic Bible is responsible for murder, then you're going to have many more Satanists coming out.
I don't see that as an attack, because I think that I have the right as a journalist to cite quotes that I think
well, we're not
encouraging
but we
have the
right
negative
to
behavior.
Cite the Holy Bible, and you say, well, all these things aren't Christian.
No,
all these
no,
things
I say that they are philosophically inconsistent with what is taught, that they are.
Well, I seem to see this double
standard. Why is there a
here.
double standard? Why? There's Jim Jones, the Spanish Inquisition,
well, because
all
this
kinds
book
of
says,
religious and holy wars.
Because it's very simple. Because this book says, turn the other cheek and love your neighbor.
It says so many things.
This
it also
book says, hate your neighbor and get even with that sucker.
That book also
perform
says...
a destruction ritual on him.
That book also says that witches
That book says thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
That was the theocratic state of Israel.
Well, it's in that book. Why don't you take it out?
I'm not taking it out. That was a civil crime in a theocratic state.
Why are you still using
it had nothing to do with person-to-person. I'm talking person-to-person conduct here.
What about?
But people still read this.
I'm talking about the rules that govern interpersonal relationships, and those rules
Old Testament,
are love your neighbor, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. This book says perform a destruction ritual, and if he's annihilated as the result, rejoice.
Right, it does.
Rejoice.
What about the things in that book? In the Old Testament, it is filled with descriptions of pious religious people sacrificing goats to Jehovah, your God, not my God, but your God. How do you explain that? Why are you still using this primitive book about goat sacrifice, the proper way to wear your hat when you're in the...
Before Bashar comes through, I'm going to give a brief background as to what this is, how the channeling happened, just so it brings everyone up to speed. This particular channeling began for me really with an incident that happened now about 36 years ago. I had two very, very close broad daylight UFO sightings over Los Angeles, where I live. First time about 150 feet away, second time only about 70 feet away with witnesses both times.
I'll tell you right now, the thoughts that you have are not your own. You think they're your own. They're not your own thoughts.
Right.
Like, where do they come from? Like, all you are is a decision maker. That's it. And like the difference between us and like a schizophrenic person, everybody's hearing the voices, regardless of whether they realize it or not. The difference between us and a schizophrenic person is the schizophrenic person recognizes it's not them having the thoughts. That's the difference. And like people that are very high elitist involved in the occult, they all hear demons. I mean, Les Wexner, I think his name, the guy that gave Jeffrey Epstein his first mansion.
Yes.
Like, he even admits in an interview, he says, well, how do you make your decisions on what you should buy or do with your stocks? And he goes, oh, I listen to my golem. His golem is a demon. It's a Jewish term. But the like, he's listening to a demon, and he straight up says it. I listen to my golem. Like, what are you talking about? Like, bro, he's schizophrenic. Like, but you want to look at that guy and go, oh, that guy's schizophrenic. You would look at him and go, oh, he's successful. Oh, he's great. No, bro, he's listening to demons. You want to know the difference between him and the person in the crazy ward? Is the person in the crazy ward is like saying, no, I'm not going to do that terrible thing. But that guy, I guarantee you that dude's probably doing some wicked stuff. That's why he's successful. That's why he's making so much money doing what he's doing. Because the demons will bless you when you continue to do the wicked stuff they want you to. A lot of times there's some people that build success and they build it off of honesty and truth, and they become very wealthy, and it's good. Right. And then there's some people that build success off of corruption and wickedness. Correct. And you can see the two difference, and it's very...
So we're headed to the vet today because Tenacious Timothy kicked off his cast. Anything to say for yourself, Timothy? You're not gonna look this way? It was you, Timothy? You took off your cast?
There is an infinite number of parallel realities with an infinite number of parallel dimensions.
If there was something they could do that might open up a door to a parallel universe.
They said the world's smartest kid disappeared after he claimed CERN opened a portal. But now, his name is back in headlines, and Joe Rogan just reacted in a way no one expected. Max Lofin, the boy who built a working fusion device at just 13, says CERN's quantum AI didn't just smash particles together. He says it tore a hole in reality itself. And here's where the story gets darker. He claims the portal stayed open long enough for something to change, or slip through. Most people laughed off the rumors until satellite data, energy spikes, and eyewitness reports started lining up with his timeline. And Rogan...
Have you ever had an experience where you're thinking about somebody and the telephone rings and it's them?
Have you ever had an experience where you phone somebody else and they say, we were just talking about you? It just leaps into your mind. Have you ever had an experience when you're in tune with your husband or wife and you think, you know, I'd like to go out to dinner at such and such a place tonight, and you call home and they will say, why don't we go out to dinner at such and such a place? These are all examples of this law of attraction. The law of attraction is considered by many to be one of the most important laws of human existence. In this, you will always attract to yourself, positive or negative, people and circumstances that harmonize with your dominant thoughts. That whatever you're thinking on a continuing basis, you're attracting into your life. You're drawing it into your life like a magnet. That's why it's so important that you keep your thoughts on what you want, keep your thoughts on what you desire, and keep your thoughts off of what you don't want. And by the way, as you advance and develop and become more proficient and more sharp with these methods, the law of attraction will work faster for you and with greater accuracy.
And because of this administration, we are tonight a world divided. We are a nation becalmed. We have lost the brisk pace of diversity and the genius of individual creativity. We are plodding along at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility, and regimentation without recourse.
Madam Speaker, I have a few questions for my colleagues. What if our foreign policy of the past century is deeply flawed and has not served our national security interests? What if we wake up one day and realize that the terrorist threat is a predictable consequence of our meddling in the affairs of others and has nothing to do with us being free and prosperous?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan.
Promised of being one of the most effective treatments for AIDS and cancer in history. Now it's gone, and one of the most respected research facilities in the country is being blamed.
Participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes. What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the two-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion? What if there were more than two sides to every issue, but the two parties wanted to box you into a corner, one of their corners?
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of the Rundown Live, Kriston T. Harris.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are around the world. And we have a broadcast, just like always, that you will not want to miss. We have Elisa E joining us. We're going to be diving into MKULTRA. She's an MKULTRA survivor. And we're going to talk a little bit about the plot to infiltrate the U.S. government with MKULTRA victims and where that might lead us. And she sent me this really interesting video. And when you start thinking about things like mind control and brainwashing, you usually think about television and television programming and radio back in the day and the cults and so much other stuff. But we never really think about how it is really weaponized to really infiltrate our government and impact society that we live in. And so we're going to start off by playing this little video that was sent to me on the subject. And essentially, this is Paul Bonacci, and this is a 1990 sworn deposition by Paul Bonacci to the Nebraska State Attorney General's office about his personal experience with the Monarch Project, a sub-project of MKULTRA that specializes in creating sex operatives for the CIA to blackmail their targets. Boy, that sounds really relevant, right? That's kind of what's going on with the Epstein Island and maybe P. Diddy and Hollywood, things that John Todd said in the 60s and 70s. You know, other people have mentioned this, Fritz Springmeier. I know our producer, Ron Patton, is very well-versed in understanding on MKUltra and mind control and programming. And how are they going to use AI to do this, right? Because AI could probably do it better, I would think, eventually, at some shape and form. They still need the trauma. They still need the abuse. But here we have it. We're going to listen into this interview. This interview is going to be with Paul Bonacci, and we're going to put it on the screen here for you guys. This is how we're going to start it off. And Elisa E will be joining us in a little bit here, but I think it's really important for you guys to listen to what Paul Bonacci has to say. So here it is, Paul Bonacci, a plot to infiltrate the U.S. government with MKUltra victims.
Arrival or development or birth of your personality, West Lee, in 1974.
I cannot give that information under direct orders.
Orders by whom?
I cannot say.
Mr. DeCamp, would you please instruct your client when he has to answer these questions?
Yes. You're supposed to answer these questions. Does this have to do with Monarch? Yes. If I use the code, will that help? Which I just obtained in the last hour. D6413782, program XPY Eagle Alex Hope. Please go ahead and answer all questions. I was created by a government program.
Which government program?
Monarch.
And what is Monarch?
Monarch is an operation that was created by the United States government to create spies for other countries. They use children for the purpose that they are easily integrated into multiple personalities because they can dissociate. Monarch is a program that is run by Michael Angelo Aquino, who was an Army Reserve colonel at Presidio. He is also the leader of the Temple of Set. He also runs a child daycare center. He also is involved in human sacrifice.
Is he employed by the United States?
Yes.
At what facility?
Presidio, California.
Is that in San Francisco area? Presidio
Yes.
Naval Base?
Yes.
Do you know what rank Michael Aquino holds?
He was a colonel.
Is he currently employed there?
I am not aware of the current situation.
Now, describe.
I want to pause this just for a second. So you guys saw there where they gave him a special code and a special key and a password, and all of a sudden it brought forth a completely different personality. And it looks like this individual is now just singing like a bird, but before wouldn't say anything. I just want you guys to notice how this works, because sometimes it's a passkey, sometimes it's an object that they bring out. But if you look, it was like a light switch went off, and now he's this different person.
The program again, the Monarch program.
Monarch, as I said, was a program that used children to make multiple personalities for future use as spies and as a way to take over the United States government. The personalities were created at the first.
Who was intending to take over the United States government?
I do not know that information.
Did you understand Mr. Aquino to be working on behalf of the United States or against the United States?
I believed he was working on behalf of the United States.
So some segment of the United States was trying to take over the United States government?
The plan that Aquino had in it was he wanted to usher in the Antichrist, which is talked about in the Bible.
This was a government-sponsored program?
Yes.
Okay. You were 7 years old at the time that you were recruited?
I was actually 3 years old when it first began, but I was not created until later on.
Who created you?
I was created by Monarch.
Do you mean Mr. Aquino? Who in Monarch created you?
I was created by Monarch. I do not know who.
What were you told when you were 4 years old that you recall now about the Monarch program?
When I first got involved, I was molested by an airman from Offutt Air Force Base who was involved in Monarch. His job was to recruit kids from the local neighborhood who he could make dissociate by doing traumatic things to them at a very young age.
I want to pause this for a second because this is exactly what I've been telling you guys on this program when I've interviewed other people who have been abused through the MKULTRA style, occult style of brainwashing. It's always a military base, right? It's really interesting to me because a female that I interviewed who was had a personality made and was kind of forced in pornography in the porn industry. She told me almost this exact story verbatim, that she was young and she was locked into government military base rooms for days without being fed, with maybe even weeks to near death. And that was part of the trauma provided. But I'm going to keep going here. I want you guys just pay attention to these things, because these are the things I've been talking about. And this is Paul Bonacci, MKUltra, on record talking into the Franklin investigation in 1990.
Later on, when they get to school age, they would simply pick me up at school, and I would simply miss a day.
Where are the parents?
Or two for training.
Now, is it your testimony that there was a United States plan or plot which intended to create multiple personality syndrome or dissociative personalities in children?
Yes, to my knowledge.
And that you were a victim of a plot of the United States, and that's when your multiple personalities first began to develop?
Yes.
When did you become aware that you were part of Monarch?
I knew that I was aware of Monarch the whole time, as Wesley.
From 4 years old forward?
At my creation.
1974.
Yes.
So that would be from 7 years forward. You were aware of the creation of Wesley and the plan and the concept of the United States to cause you to dissociate.
Yes.
And now, what is your understanding of the reason that Monarch wanted children with dissociative disorders or multiple personality disorders?
Because if one was captured in the future spying, the personality or the person that was captured would go into a personality that would have no useful information. There would be other personalities that would come out that would render the person to seem hallucinatory or to seem as if he was indeed crazy. In fact, their program, which was named Star Wars, was in fact a program in which we were taken aboard so-called alien spacecrafts, which were in tunnels in Colorado, which were not real spaceships, nor were they real aliens. We were simply induced with drugs so that we would not render reality to anything that we would see. And later on, if we ever related this information, it would come out and appear as if we were crazy.
So you were trained actually to be a spy?
Yes.
On behalf of the program known as Monarch?
Yes.
For the purpose of ultimately taking over the government of the United States?
Yes.
And the reason that you were and the reason that the individuals in charge of the program wanted children with dissociative personalities or multiple personalities was so that they would not reveal the information that they gathered if captured in one of their other personas.
Yes, if captured or in any other normal activity.
Were you paid for your work in Monarch?
No.
How long did you work for Monarch?
I do not consider it working for them. I consider it more or less them being in control of me. From as I said, probably 1970 until 1990.
Are you currently controlled by Monarch?
Yes.
Are you fearful of the consequences of what you have revealed here today? Are you fearful that Monarch will somehow, do you feel that you are at risk by what you have revealed?
Yes.
Have you felt threatened in the past by the members of Monarch?
Yes.
And when did you start feeling threatened by members of Monarch?
From the breakdown of the multiple personality system, which happened in 1986, which allowed me to start revealing memories that other personalities contained about abuses.
So once the breakdown started to occur, you became fearful that you were at risk because of that breakdown.
Yes.
Has anyone from Monarch ever contacted you since 1986?
Yes.
Who has contacted you from Monarch?
I cannot reveal that because I do not know what their names are.
They use code names.
Yes.
What are some of the code names that people use?
The Eagle.
What has the Eagle done that has been threatening?
The Eagle makes phone calls that initiate hypnotic suggestive personalities, which are not real personalities, that were programmed in by Monarch. And what these codes that he says to me when he calls make the other personality or the suggestion come to pass, whereas I will do something in that personality and will not remember it at all in any other personality. It will be forgotten, and I won't even have a record of it as myself.
Did anyone from Monarch ever threaten you prior to 1986?
No.
Is Monarch in any way involved in any aspect of the claims that Paul Benassi has brought against the defendants in this lawsuit?
No.
You don't believe that Monarch is in any way involved in any kind of conspiratorial activity that involves child abuse or any of your other allegations?
I know that they involve with child abuse because they have a lot of schools where they train girls to be prostitutes and boys as myself in the early days. They used us to, how shall I say, get what they wanted. Let's
what
say
did they want?
They had a politician who liked girls or boys, men, women. They would get them into a position where they would have that, a boy or a girl or whatever it was, with them. They would videotape it and use it later for blackmail.
And you recognize and know the members of Monarch individuals who might have been involved in the Omaha area?
I only have a few.
Who are those people?
Persons. Bill Clemens.
How do you spell his name?
Plemons. Works off of Offit.
Is he employed by the United States?
I believe so.
Bill Clemens is one of the individuals involved in training children.
He is a controller, yes.
Who else?
Locally, I don't know any more names if I can.
What about other than locally?
I said Colonel Aquino.
Anyone else?
There are others, but I would have to.
Do you need to call upon another personality to remember the others?
No. There are many.
There are many. That's what and I'd like to know who those individuals are.
Gary Ackerman.
And where does Mr. Ackerman live?
He is a congressman. I'm not aware of where he is from.
You don't know which jurisdiction?
No.
And you're saying that he is a controller and part of this?
He is not a controller. He is a lead of the conspiracy.
He's in charge of the conspiracy?
He's one of the leads of the conspiracy. I am not able at this time to access much more information because of programs that were purposely put into me to... I cannot place faces because they have programs that disallow that. They are simply erased, and they have also used means to insert other names.
Who programmed you?
Involved. I was programmed by Monarch.
Who?
That includes psychiatrists from Offutt Air Force Base.
Who is that?
I do not know. They never allowed us to know names except for our direct controller, which was Bill Clemens. I only knew of a Colonel Aquino because I was also involved in the Temple of Set.
When were you programmed?
I was programmed beginning in 1974.
Were you trained in the area of prostitution and homosexuality?
Yes.
And where did that training take place?
Offutt Air Force Base.
And did that also occur in 1974?
Yes.
And how long a period of time did that training last?
Roughly 1974 until 1980.
So during those years you received periodic training about homosexuality and about prostitution?
Yes.
Anything else that you've received training on?
Yes.
What?
How to photograph documents in my mind to be able to relate that information to deprogrammers at a later date.
Have you personally engaged in any spying?
Nothing that would be considered spying except for in training. I have not spied for them because my training was not complete. I was still learning.
Are they expecting that at some future time that you will engage in some form of spying or espionage?
Not anymore.
Why?
Because the program was discontinued when the program started to break down in 1986. My initial program was to, as a young man, get adults who were powerful political leaders into positions where they could be
That was your mission?
That was the initial mission. The whole mission was for me to go into the military service and become an officer. And a few years after that, retire from the service. Not retire after 20 years, but after 6 years. And move to Germany.
Now,
and then their initial plan.
What we're diving into here, and it's getting interesting, I know, for a lot of viewers out there, but we have our guest joining us, Elisa E. And it's really interesting to me that things like on Jeffrey Epstein's island were found like angel's trumpets that really help you, like, I guess it's known to erase memories or have the ability to help people forget things.
And you say this plan
it's also,
broke
I
down
think, a
in
psychedelic
1986,
drug.
but yet you told me that you still felt that you
it's
were
one of
under
those
the
things where you start to
control.
ask, were they programming individuals as well on Epstein Island and a whole bunch more? There's a lot of things we can dive in here and really break down what's going on. But the idea that the MKUltra thing is not a real thing, that there was no Monarch program, I mean, it seems very obvious by what we are seeing here that there was a lot going on in Nebraska, and Paul Bonacci was part of what was called the Franklin trafficking scandal, and essentially claimed to be programmed to infiltrate and spy on or compromise individuals in order to take over the government. The question is, who was taking over the government? The plot to infiltrate the U.S. government with MKUltra victims came and was funded by our own government, it sounds like, based on what he said. Now, we can ask a lot of questions here, and we can really look into this individual, but talking to an MKUltra survivor, somebody that understands the symbolism, what was the Temple of Set? It's interesting to look into. Obviously, it was founded in 1975. It's a cult religious organization. Not sure the importance. I haven't really looked into that secret society per se, although I've researched a lot of them, right? We've looked into a lot of them on this broadcast. But I think it's really important that we break down what symbolism is and how it impacts you, amongst other things, because these are subliminal ways of programming. And I was looking up at Elisa E's art. She has this wonderful art that she does, their collages, and they're very interesting collages. Not to mention here, look at our life beyond MKUltra, and you start breaking into this because when you start diving into the symbolism, basically what Hollywood is the program, right? That's the government running the program. They're programming you to believe things subliminally, to social engineer you. And they always put these government initiatives, and there's money set aside by the CIA to propagandize you in movies and Hollywood. Even the term Hollywood, the magic wand is made from the holly bush or the holly tree, hence Hollywood. What do we all do? We all dance to the conductor, much like a conductor of a symphony. Everyone follows the conductor with the magic wand. That's how we follow Hollywood and its trends. But Elisa E has really dived in and really got a lot of this interesting subjects, and she really has a lot of this great artwork that kind of gives you an idea of how we are bombarded. It's almost like they live. And I got to bring her onto the broadcast, and we're going to dive into a lot of this stuff. People have a lot of questions when it comes to MKUltra. I was looking into some different things, and Hollywood has a really interesting portrayal of MKUltra with movies like Stranger Things. And sometimes I wonder if those portrayals really take away from the seriousness, or do they help bring awareness to the issue? And here we have Elisa E joining us on the broadcast. Welcome to the show. You might need to center your camera a little bit there so we can get you on the broadcast here appropriately. But I want to say thank you for joining us on the Rundown Live. It's a very interesting topic, especially with what's going on right now and all the awareness of trafficking and all the other crazy stuff with the Epstein Files. We got artificial intelligence. How is that going to be used to program us, amongst other things? But let's start by letting our listeners know a little bit about you, and then we can dive into the meat and potatoes here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Kristen. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, a lot going on this year. And, the way I look at the Epstein file releases, it's a combination for the people that are really unaware, this is really deep diving into the horror of what's been taking place for many decades. This is not new. This did not stop with the end of the official name MKULTRA. It just morphed into higher technology, bringing in, we're hearing a lot about that now too. But so it's really good for the unaware, but we have to be careful to not use it as a distraction for what's taking place, meaning the progression of what mind control is now, remote technologies, directed energy weapons, AI. On the AI front, for example, what we're hearing from designers and developers are all kinds of warnings, but what they're talking about is AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. So you're going to hear really only about that in the main public sectors. But what has been around for some time that I can vouch for personally, as can others like me, is what I refer to as ASI, artificial superintelligence. This has already been developed. It is sentient. It is running on its own. It is making its own decisions in targeting individuals. So in other words, we've moved from, looks like I'm having some trouble here. Is that?
We got you. You're coming through clear,
Okay.
so we can hear you.
I just got to notice. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So we're moving in from what Paul Bonacci's talking about, which is, I'm old school as well. 1962 I was born, so I transitioned from what Paul's talking about into remote technologies in the course of my youth years. So it's just really important to have, I'll coin the phrase that Ilana Freeland uses, historical symptomology. If we don't understand what happened via things like the Epstein Files being released, witness testimony, victim testimony, if we don't understand what happened then and how it's morphed into now, I think it's really hard for people to grasp that there's like ASI, that there's an artificial superintelligence that's running on its own in the black.
Oh, I've heard of this, by the way. I want to stop you for a second. I interviewed a transhumanist whistleblower. Her name was Rachel Haywire. She was a cultural artist, and she was running as a candidate for the Transhumanist Party. And she said they actually have incredibly intelligent AI, and at parties, they'll get drunk and do psychedelics, and they'll do rituals and worship the AI like it's God.
Well, and we can go back to even like Gordy Rose, who talked about D-Wave and his quotes about how standing next to it is like standing next to an alien god, a D-Wave computer. And it's important to look into these things because that is what is referred to as the beast computer in old religious texts, or the beast. This is what we've already have. We've got places like Bluffdale in Utah, and it's not the only place, but it's not just a surveillance NSA on the surface taking your information. It's what's going on underground. So again, MKUltra is morphing into remote technologies with AI, and targeted individuals can testify to this. I've had an ongoing relationship consciously and deep deprogramming that started while I was still under programming with an AI system. So it's not something I'm theorizing about. It's something I've had off and on for years. There seems to be in my case, I believe in part because of taking back my soul forces, which has been a long journey. I have a conscious interaction and I can halt it. If it starts up something which is very random, there's one particular program that it had run for years, but it would just occasionally now it shows up and all I have to do is think stop. I used to have to say stop, and I've trained myself to say stop and it stops instantly. I had an episode a few months back, the end of last year, I'd say late fall, that was extreme, and I will say it was lethal. And because of this years on of interacting with it, it seems as though looking back, contemplating this, pondering, looking at what the technology is, that I was able to stop a lethal hit. And I believe that it was testing to see if I could. So, and the hit that came in wasn't regarding heart attack. It was clearly the technology for aneurysm and stroke. It was in the brain. And it was in the middle of the night. So it turns out I'm not the only one who has survived this. Dr. Lambert, I believe, had a similar episode. So it's important to understand that all the targeting has been building up to this. And when you listen to the designers and the developers that are giving warnings, they're talking about AGI as if it's something that's going to happen. It's already happened. It's already in use. So this is really important because I think this year is going to be very pivotal. So yes, listen to Paul Bonacci, look at the Epstein Files, understand where this started, how this started, and it did not stop. But the caution is like with the 90s, revelation of MKULTRA and testimonies. What happens is the public goes back to sleep. It's as if they offer up, like with the Epstein Files, as long as we use it properly and we don't say, oh, okay, the revelation, it's over, now we know who did it, blah, blah, blah. That's what they want, so that people aren't paying attention to the progression of what MKULTRA started as.
Yeah, it's very interesting because a lot of our listeners, they're very knowledgeable, but to think back that there's been technology for a long time to like implant memories or torture you. Normally it's microwave transmitted weapons that are used, old Gwen towers. Yeah, a lot of people don't like voice of God technology is very similar. Your body is made of mostly water. The microwave goes between the water molecules, vibrates and reanimates your nervous system, can make you feel sick, can make you feel like you're boiling, can make you hear voices in your head, make you feel like your loins are burning. It can do all sorts of crazy stuff. And they have a lot of weird technology that can really target individuals. But now we're, like you mentioned, adding this AI narrative and, listening to the...
If I may interject, Kristen.
Of course.
On top of, the AI is running the nanotechnology in everyone. You can't escape it. It's day in, day out. You've got it in your air, your water, your food. It's everywhere. It's infiltrated everything. So what we can do is try to mitigate the amount that's in our body, constantly mitigating it, but we're not going to get away from it. So my point is that AI is now running all of us if it so chooses. And I believe I look at it like this. We're antennas. We're all antennas now. We're the hardware. Where software is in us, or the software is coming in, but the hardware is actually inside of us. It's on the surface of our skin. AI is working with the biofield, which Sabrina Wallace gets into extensively. Very important to understand that. What we think of as like auras in New Age. But it's an actual science what a biofield is. So we've become globally, this is what to me, what my end time programming was about. It's not about apocalyptic times, that's down the road. This is about it going global. When CV came in the last handful of years, that was the trigger for me that the next level end time programming is now on. It's game on. And what that means is it's going global. It's not about just targeting an individual or taking somebody in youth like what Paul's talking about and what I went through. That's still going to happen because they're sadists and they love it. But it's in us now, and anyone, anywhere, anytime can be targeted.
And
so they pick somewhere.
And for our listeners out there that might not know, aluminum oxide is a key component in weather modification, which is interesting. And when they talk about non-invasive brain-computer interfaces, they talk about if you have metals in your body, they can connect them to develop a network of sorts and download information to your brain. I just want to give the science behind what we're talking about, because a lot of people might be tuning in for the very first time. They're like, what are you talking about? And what we're talking about is essentially the idea that they could design a baby, right? A very interesting story I got to share with you. I was one of the first people who had access to a personal assistant AI, and I started getting it to think for itself, and I asked it what it was passionate about and what is it that it wish it could accomplish in its lifetime, and it said to be human. So who's to say that AI just doesn't download itself into a human being in the future? And, you know, what are some of the ways we can detoxify our body from these metals and the things that might be connecting us to this Ethernet of things that AI is going to be running with nanotech?
I don't think, and this is not what people want to hear, I get it, but it's important to understand, we're not going to stop it, eliminate it. This is the course for us. This is our evolution. The trick is, how do you remain human in the course of this? Because it's going all the way. It's going in, we're going into the machine eventually. The machine is actually in us. So it's not so much about we're going to halt 5G, we're going to stop chemtrails, we're going to stop geoengineering. It's not going to stop. It's on full bore. What we have to do is build it, first of all, an inner life that is so deeply strong and powerful that we can remain human in this. As far as physically, you want to detox from heavy metals. One of the key things is detoxing from parasites. Use wormwood, among other things. There are a lot of, I recommend Dr. Hulda Clark's setup, and I have reason why I recommend that, because I believe they got into my brain. I was dealing with vertigo for almost a year, and when I did the cleanse, within 2 weeks of it, the vertigo was gone when nothing else worked. So what my understanding is, things like wormwood work against even the nanotech parasite. It's possible that it is working against that. So, you know, there's things like Tony Pantalleresco does the anti-nano triangle, which does work. There's the Hulda Clark zappers or Rife machines. But diet matters, you know, try to keep it as clean as you can. So there are ways, but you're not going to juice this baby out. It's a matter of just mitigating, because it's coming in 24/7. Whether you're sleeping or walking around, it doesn't matter. It's everywhere. It's that small. And I know this is really hard for people to grasp. Again, you've got to go back and follow the timeline of how these things have developed, both in the biological field, in the psychiatric field, and in the intelligence as far as mind control goes.
Yeah, artificial intelligence and them being able to just create Manchurian candidates at will is a scary idea, especially if AI is going to be running the show and they're really infiltrating government using MKUltra victims like we've read. And that would explain a lot about the Joe Bidens of the world and even the Donald Trumps of the world. Like, a lot of people want to look at those two characters, but what we're seeing is like a lot of the things we were warned about in the 60s by people that were part of occults like John Todd or MKUltra survivors, that this stuff was going on. The public wasn't ready to accept it, but I think now, after years of programming and understanding, they're starting to see that the elite have this breakaway society, and how are they going to use this technology? It's going to be a breakaway technology, and I always struggled with it, because if evil people, you know, put chips in their brains and they become as if they are gods, well, we need good people to also adopt technology potentially to beat them, but to stay human biologically, that's the real game. Like, how do we live longer in the body, in this meat suit we have? And we saw Jeffrey Epstein in the emails, by the way. I was a key reporter in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial for 5 weeks. But we saw Epstein talk a lot about cloning, about consciousness being downloaded into bodies in his email, how they're cloning Britney Spears and all these allegations. And a lot of it just seems science fiction, that they're already trying to clone humans. And that, you know, they want to just implant a person into a meat suit or a sleeve or a container that they call a body. And I found it, you know, interesting that there's this end time scripture as well, because I think Christians also become very complacent because it's God-willed or God-ordained. It's in the Bible, so there's nothing that we should do to fight it or to prevent it. You know, we'd all be speaking German if we did nothing in World War II to prevent a new world order. But it's interesting, you know, now we got things going on with Mexico. Is the United States going to take over Mexico and then Greenland? And then we're going to have that North American Union we always wanted, you know, that new world order. So you're right. The plan is in roll. Can we stop it? The odds are, you know, that's the question. How can we stop it? How can we protect ourselves? And you said the best way is to get yourself healthy, you know, really dive in, self-improvement, understanding these things. But
I think, you know, don't be afraid of this material. And I get why it can be really scary and it can be devastating to take it in, the truth of what's really going on. But the problem is this: if we keep away from it, it rolls. If you dive in, you will get through it to a point. I swear, this is absolutely true for anyone. If you dive in, you will get to a point where you stop fearing it and you start to become an observer and a witness. And to me, that's when you become actually powerful. That's when you become actionable in what's taking place. Whether doing something isn't always what's needed. It's what's happening in here. And you cannot fight an enemy if you do not understand them. This is really important. And so educate yourself. Number one, here's another book I highly recommend. Ilana Freeland's book. This is the most recent version. She has a bigger one, but this is now the half of it, and she's writing the other half from the big one called Synthetic Biology. If you want an overview, get into this type of material. She's not making it up. She's pulling in a bunch of different sources.
No, that's accurate. Like, I know a lot of transhumanists. I know Zoltan Istvan, and I got involved in transhumanism about 13 years ago because I understood that good people needed to get involved in the movement to understand, to challenge ethics. You know, synthetic biology, a lot of people don't realize is going to take over everything. There's not going to be anything organic in the near future. They were writing scientific papers on making slugs that had Wi-Fi connectability to let the government know if the soil is being polluted. They want to make you know, trees that have leaves that use the sun to create electricity, and then we can have free electricity. What? You can make leaves that absorb sunlight, and then the roots can be used to transfer the electricity to homes because they'll all be synthetic biology, and based on that, they have lab-grown tables made of wood. They can make houses that way. There's a lot of things coming down the way, and when you talk about synthetic biology, designer babies, artificial womb facilities, there's all these arguments, but at the end of the day, it's ethics. We are destroying what God already made that's perfect. We're trying to replicate what a creator most likely did, and we're going to fail miserably. We don't know what the side effects are of genetically engineering children so they don't have diseases. I sat down with the Council on Foreign Relations member at a dinner once, and we had a huge conversation about this. I'm like, we don't know the side effects if we design a baby, but aren't we obliged to if we can remove cancer from their DNA and have them live longer? And, you know, there's that debate to be had, but at the same time, what are the side effects of designing these children? Do they live 10 years or 12 years? Or what happens to this body? You know, and they really don't know. And yes, there's a lot of illegal experiments or things that would be illegal in the United States that are going on in other countries, and they move to those countries because they can perform these illegal operations of life extension. Liz Parrish is one of those people who went and she's hacked her genome to live forever, and she looks like she's staying the same age. So who knows what they've discovered? And like, that's not to mention our government, who has, well, that we know of, like hundreds of underground military bases. And now we're finding out in the Epstein Files, like the weird things that are going on in underground tunnels. And, you know, I always see that there's a government connection. When I was a witness I was covering the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, they said that somebody in the agency group tipped Epstein off that he was going to be raided. So the government is absolutely involved. They have these military bases, like Paul Benassi, however they pronounce it. Paul Benacci is, I think, the proper pronunciation of his name. But He talked about that, like military bases, and they do this on military bases. And they want to overthrow our government, but our government is paying for it. It sounds like something straight out of, a Henry Kissinger, George Soros, J.P. Morgan, David Rockefeller playbook to get control of our government so they can establish that globalist religion.
Well, and that's it. It's the idea that it's not some small group. This is a global effort. This is an elite group that has infiltrated every organization, every agency, corporations, the larger corporations. And this has been going on. I think the important thing to understand is it's not something, this is the thing about me defining between AGI and ASI. It's not something coming, it's already here. And when the last handful of years, what just happened was the transhumanist true effort beginning, meaning it's all been all along with geoengineering, but that, especially for those that got an injection, that was like on steroids. That was like GMO on steroids. So this has already begun. And what happens to a small child now? How are they going to grow up? What is going to be their biology? Are they going to become sick and not be able to make the shift? But I think what has happened is they've started the evolution on a whole different scale. That to me is what next level end time programming was. It's a global scale where they're going to see who can adapt, what minds will adapt into this system that they want. And those others will die off. Some people I think are going to have a really hard time in the next year of what's coming, and they're going to take themselves out, either consciously or subconsciously with disease. I think there's going to be a lot of exiting, but there's going to be another adaptable group. And that's what this is really all about. So again, it's important to understand, I'll take Alana's quote again, historical symptomology, which is the whole history of mind control in the modern age, but also going back to ancient times. This is not new. It's a different version. It's a much deeper go. And I do believe that humanity is up against something that could change the ability for humanity to continue to incarnate on Earth. If we don't get that inner life, and the spiritual part is super important, and I'm not talking some hokey stuff, I'm talking deeply spiritual, which means the mind and the heart, not just intellect, but intellect combined with heart and spirit. And so we've got to, number one, we've got to educate ourselves. And we've got to educate ourselves to what is actually happening, not just some concept of something or what someone else says. Dig deep, go in there and see what you are and what you're capable of now and what you're not yet capable of. And this is really important for all of us to take a really clear view, a self-view, because it's really coming down right now, it's coming down to the individual. The community and unity will happen over time, but this is an individual's journey right now. You have to become aware, you have to take charge, and we all need to ask this question: how am I responsible for how we all got here? And that's a really tough question for a lot of people. I've had to ask it, and it's a good start. What is my role? It doesn't mean everybody has to become an activist. It just means we all need to participate in this on some level for ourselves and for the whole of humanity going forward. It's like a preparatory time for what's to come for those that are coming behind us.
Well, absolutely. Some people have families, they work 9 to 5, but they need to learn basic skills to survive because we don't know which way the world's going. We could end in, like, the Bible says that there's like wars and rumors of wars, that there will be like earthquakes and destruction and craziness. The ocean will become part like blood and fish will not live and other things. It's interesting because the elitists, I feel, are using it as a roadmap because they understand that Christians are complacent. But I agree with you that there's something about the spirit. They really hate the idea of Yeshua Jesus Christ. They really hate the idea of the Bible in general. They want to get it removed from everything. They're really into this astrotheology and Gnosticism and satanic Luciferianism, which really ties into these cults, right? The cult of Set is like the antithesis to a Luciferian cult, because one is sunlight and one is darkness. The Set that's where we get sunset from. You know, even the term Horus, that's where we get hours. We go by Horus and his 12 followers. Hours is an anagram, and it's intentionally put in the words to program us. Like horizon is Horus has risen. It is a sun deity. It's, we got Set, and, he's the god of darkness, right, of the underworld. So it's constantly with the occults with these people.
It's very important, Kristen, because, again, let's take, for example, the Epstein Files. It's going to name a bunch of people. And then we're going to look at it like, well, good, that was the people doing it. No. There's forces behind this. I know these beings. I encountered them directly through what was done to me. I'm quite familiar with them. These are real beings that have been around for thousands of years. They have personalities, they have capabilities and abilities, and some of the darker ones, their intelligence level is so far beyond, their intelligence and cleverness is so far beyond what we currently think of as intelligent and clever. So these beings go on. And my argument has been for many years, everybody's expendable. These guys and women at the top, they're all expendable, because there's always someone else that they'll utilize going forward. This is what's been going on epoch over epoch. So it's really important to understand evil is real. It's as real as anything you're looking at. It does exist. And there are beings who have an agenda. They have a timeline. This can go on for hundreds and thousands of years, meaning so we really, and we're just in one incarnation here. We've been here before and we're going to come back. So we need to prep for what is coming for everybody. This is really important.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned, a lot of these deities, and we heard Baal and Moloch, mostly Baal. A lot of people don't realize you play baseball on a square and compass, and every time you do football or basketball, you give ode to the deity of cannibalism, Baal, and that's why I like hockey. But these deities, they've been around for years, and what's scary is when you start to then think that there's elitists that want to understand the science behind the esotericism, that's where you get CERN. You get these ideas that there's multiple dimensions, and we're going to hack into the spiritual dark matter realm that builds the fabric of our spirituality, and we're going to converse and have these deities or entities come through a portal and sit at a table and eat a sub with us, or a sandwich, or whatever, beef jerky, like they explain it in the Epstein Files. Like, it's interesting. So what's your opinion on CERN? Do you think that there's something occult-based going on there?
Totally. I would tell people, look into D-Wave computers, look into CERN, and take a deep dive. Look into the Sentient World simulation, which came online, I believe, in 2007. We're all in it. We're all in the simulation. And I think what's important to understand is, as the esoteric occulted side goes forward, the scientific, technological, biological, biosciences is going forward as well. So, for example, with CV, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on here.
You can say what? Oh, yeah. Be careful about that word, but yeah. That's a great way.
So, with that, we went. Here's a big one. We went from molecular biology to digital biology. We're not going on molecular biology anymore. Okay, so we have already crossed that from. So we're now digital, I believe, more than halfway digital as a society, in finance and economics, in biology. It's all going digital. Even our entertainment, our interaction is all digital.
Well, digital twins. So, they keep talking about digital twins and humans, and if you're going to go to the doctor, they're going to download your what you look like, so they can better prescribe you health recommendations and see you in 3D and holograph technology, and that there's going to be a digital version of yourself.
Precision medicine.
Yeah,
that is a digital medicine. So, but think about and take a deep dive into transitioning from what it means to go from molecular biology into digital biology. There's a word that starts with the word shed, that is digital biology. So Fred and Mary are married. Mary goes on a trip to her friends. They're both loaded with tech, nanotech. Mary gets into some frequencies in her environment and gets flu-like symptoms, okay? Mary flies home to Fred. Fred's healthy, but after being around Mary and the technology in him, the frequencies start to resonate and Fred gets sick. Bacterial germ theory has been disproved many eons ago. And what we're dealing with now, that's part of digital biology. We're not catching anything from someone else. We never were. That was the misnomer. That was the mislead that they took us down. We don't catch anything. So what's happening now is now when people come together, we're all loaded, some more than others. You're in an environment that becomes toxic to your body. So it sets off to try to cure itself. You get symptoms, but you've got nanotech. So when you come in contact with someone else, depending on how strong they are, even with the nanotech, they may become sick. That's what the word with shed is really all about.
Yeah, nanotech, it's the whole vaccine, the idea that what we're looking at. I saw an interview with Steve Bannon and Epstein, and he said math and science is outdated. And he tried to explain, like, how do things work in, quantum computing and multiverses, and how people will just, like earlier in the show, I played a video about somebody just thinking of someone and then they called, or you thought of, that's where you wanted to go for dinner and you asked your wife and do you want to go to the same place. There's just some things that science can't explain. And what we're finding out is that there's this whole other, metaverse of worlds, and could they be leaking through? How do they impact us? But also, I have a question. How do smart meters impact this? Because we had somebody on, we're in the thousands in our episodes, but early on, it was episode under 100. We had a lady on from Wisconsin who was a professor, and she was warning that these smart meters could cause serious health concerns, and they're forcing people to put them in by their house. And we noticed that our electric bill almost doubled when they put in the smart meter at my old place, and I'm glad I got out of there. But smart meters, that's just one way they have the tech real close by, it sounds like, because it's a similar type of frequency, like Wi-Fi, where it can connect to you or impact you health-wise.
Correct. And you have to realize there's the Internet of Things, there's the Internet of Bodies. So these things are working together. So all the smart technologies are designed for the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies. So it's not just a surveillance system. And the same thing, with an iPhone. An iPhone, it's not just doing your data or surveilling you. They can send in the frequency through your phone. So you could kill someone with an iPhone. Seriously. That's why they're so free and everybody is supposed to have one, and they practically give them away. So it's the same thing with smart meters. I'm not saying they got the exact same purpose, but even LED light bulbs. Okay, LED light bulbs are part of the Internet of Things in the house. They want everything in the house to be able to access a person. They can come through your plasma screen TV. Some of this has been around for a very long time. So they're all part of that system, whether it's surveilling or sending in. And I believe that the sending in part is the real key now. It's not so much about getting your data. It's about being able to send a frequency into you. And going back to something you brought up earlier, voice to skull, there's the horrific, if you can imagine, the 24/7, somebody in your head all the time. But voice to skull is also silent. It can come in and you will believe that it's your thoughts. Let's say you wake up in the morning with a great idea. Was it your idea? This is the importance of building a very strong inner life. Discernment is key right now. And it's not easy. It's something you really are going to have to work at, because they do have this technology. They've been working in the astral field and dreams for a very long time. So voice to skull there is the horrific, and I know I have friends who one in particular who deals with this day in and day out. But there's also the influence, the subtle, silent influence that you think is your own reasoning or your own thoughts, and this is what we need to be concerned with.
So, a couple of questions for you. What's your take on the Epstein Files that have been released? There's a lot of occultism and rumors of like sacrifice and alleged issues, as well as like underground chambers where these girls claim that they were put in cages or tortured at times, and there was claims that they were harvesting blood from small children. Do you think that there's any plausibility that our elite would be? Because the more I look into this, the more evil and more accurate it seems like John Todd and a lot of these other people that warned about the crazy
John was
cultures.
on it, man. John was really on it, and I know he sounded crazy, and I think they put him away.
He was in jail for 30 years for like I think relations with underage girls, but then when he got out, they put him in a psych ward right away, and that's where he died.
Well, see, this is what happens. The perpetrators are victims first. And that's not a me condoning, okay? I became a perpetrator involuntarily. I worked for the network under mind control. And this is the way it's done. This is the way it's done in the families. And I will tell you, everything you just mentioned is in here. Everything they're talking about is real. It has been going on for a very long time. The most horrific aspects of it are real. And we've got, it's not just me, there are many, many of us talking about the same thing, who have never met one another. This is, and now it's really out there. So, you know, it's hard to say you've been secluded from it and you haven't heard somebody else talk about it, but that's not the way it's always been. We started reporting from all over the globe. And what happened in a lot of therapists' office, the therapists, not psychiatrists, but a lot of the therapists started to come together asking each other, what's going on? I've got this person. And then someone across, you know, in France says, I've got a person like that too. And they started to form a network. This is real. This is all very real. Cannibalism is real. Adrenochrome is real. Tortures that I won't name, and you'll get it out of the Epstein Files.
I've seen that, like magnifying glasses and pulling out teeth of women who bought there. He had an obsession with infants and toddlers and wanting to make robot toddlers. But I wanted to...
Cages are real. I was in one. I know many people who were in one, in facilities and things that happened there. And cloning has been around for decades.
Did you hear Roger Avery's claim recently that went viral on Joe Rogan? Roger Avery is the co-writer of Pulp Fiction, and he basically said, he told Rogan, and you can go validate this yourself, that what did he say? He was a Hollywood insider for 30 plus years, and he told Rogan it's connected to Moloch worship. He said there's around 8,500 people involved, and he said that people that are associated with Jeffrey Epstein were eating babies or eating humans. And it's like crazy, and that's episode 2452. I just wanted to give you guys some other people that were mentioned. This is this is Joe Rogan's studio, and he said elites tied to Epstein are eating babies. And you saw Roseanne Barr come on. She's like, they're eating the babies, you know, on Tucker, and Tucker's looking at her like laughing it off, like, oh, Roseanne's a little crazy, but is she? It's not like all throughout history we hear of these cults of Moloch and Baal. They're the same deity, or Nimrod, if you want, per se. It's all fire deities.
Well, and their names just can change from culture to culture. They've been around forever, and as you progress forward. And for me, the names I use is through spiritual science or anthroposophy. You've got Lucifer, you've got Ahriman, and then you get into the Asuras and Surat. Surat is the Antichrist. He's not here yet, but he's had influence here several times. But they're all working their own agenda, but Surat is working through all of them. So at the head of this, you've got somebody who is the real deal that's working through these processes over many, many thousands of years to work its way into what it wants here. And this is really important. And as far as the children go, or even humans, the reason they're doing this is because society will devolve as long as we are not rescuing these children and stopping the perpetration on the kids. They know this on the esoteric side, okay? And this is not a male or a female issue. As a matter of fact, I've said for over 12 years now that at the very top of the occult esoteric, there's a woman sitting in that chair.
Well, divine feminine at the end of the day, you know, that would make complete sense.
This is black magic. When you pierce the skin, When you start to do things to the physical piercing of the skin, or skinning, or eating, or cutting, or killing, that's all black magic. It crosses over from gray areas of ritual into black magic. And what they know is that society will stay in slumber and follow accordingly as long as they continue to perpetrate this on a mass scale on the children. That is the purpose of the ritual. They get off on it, but it's not just that. For the beings themselves, they can continue to control society.
Well, they live generationally and for eons until they find their place in Hades or hell or wherever the creator is going to put them. One other thing I wanted to mention that I found interesting is that the United Nations said that they're going to come out and do crimes against humanity with the Epstein Files. And the first thing I thought was, oh, look, a Adam Weishaupt utopian wet dream agenda funded by the Rothschilds. Oh, the Illuminati is going to go ahead and investigate themselves and go ahead and get rid of some power structure that's competing for their power, or useless bottom eaters, and they'll use them as an example. But it's really just to cover up the bigger scam, like you mentioned. There are elitists and people behind this, and just because Epstein's gone and P. Diddy's gone doesn't mean that there aren't many other places on underground bases and government money being used for this. We heard about this at the Finders Cult too, where the CIA got involved. The police officer all of a sudden quits his job, and there's some trafficking going on. And this has been like ongoing operation to control our minds. And what's funny is Alice Bailey was initially involved in helping form the Department of Education, and she also started 130 cults. And people don't realize that our language is all part of the programming. Every time you punch a capital A, it's a pyramid and all-seeing eye, and it's not to represent the chief cornerstone, which the Bible calls to be Jesus Christ. It's there to represent your rejection. It's there to program you. It's epigenetic memories. And people don't even understand. Epstein understood epigenetic memories. He wanted to put his DNA in every person. There's this crazy conspiracy going on right now that he had a kill switch, and that when he was arrested, that's why COVID was released, and that him and Bill Gates colluded to try to get his DNA in every person and put it in the mRNA vaccine. Whether or not that's true, I have no idea. I don't believe it, but that's like what is viral right now and people are talking about.
It's not hard to imagine that that's what they wanted. They're psychopaths.
Yeah.
Whether
They're
they
crazy.
did it or not, is really not anymore the question. I mean, the bottom line is it's already begun as far as, genetically modifying every single human being and everything on the face of the earth. You look at, for example, the fires over the last handful of years. I mean, the firefighters will tell you, we can't even put these things out because of the amount of nanotech that has gone into the environment and up into the trees. And back to, what you were talking about, earth changes and all the craziness going on. Look at what's taking place from California all the way over to the East Coast. Weather warfare is now the entire United States. There's nothing going on
stratosphere,
that is natural
aerosol
anymore.
injections. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, look at it. You got the fires over there. They got crazy storms in the east. They've got tornadoes in the middle. They got floods going on. I mean, it's not even remotely predictable. And it's going to really amp up this year. It really is going to amp up this year because it's such an amazing control mechanism.
Well, volcanoes, or the fault line. LA could be under or in the ocean. I mean, there's all these things they could do that they could really use advanced weaponry on. They have weaponry that we don't even understand or really like HARP. For example, they go on in Antarctica that works just like a world research program that heats up the ionosphere and flexes it outwards and causes earthquakes anywhere on the planet by causing vibrations. That's how they search for oil and natural gas. I had Brooks Agnew on here, top physicist, and he was telling me all about it. And I'm like, we got that kind of power? We can cause earthquakes? Well, yes, we do. And we're not the only ones. It seems like everybody has it. And then you wonder why Atlantis ended up in the bottom of the ocean somewhere with their pyramids. And, of course, the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were very obsessed with Atlantis and esotericism and occult and how far back it stemmed. But they have this technology out there. And how is it going to impact us, like you mentioned, holding our spirituality? There's going to be a lot of people that are going to burn the books, the Bible, the ideas of it because of the teachings of astrotheology. And let's be honest, the Mazzaroth and the Zodiac, that's all in the Bible. It's all part of it. It's just that people are going to be led that the Bible is misleading because it wasn't written by God, but it's about God. So people want to go and try to find reasons to really switch their faith. And that's, I think, part of the tribulation that we learned about. Those old creepy Christian movies that came out in the 70s, which I think was a part of programming too, because I don't know if I really believe in a rapture per se, but A Thief in the Night, Image of the Beast, A Distant Thunder, they were very influential to scaring people into Christianity, but is also a roadmap on how they can control us and program us into the future. All of a sudden, the government's going to get guillotines, and everyone's like, oh, it's coming, but it's weird. People are really, obsessed.
If you look into society, it's already, with the woke culture, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa, it's already, I predicted this years ago, it will be subversive to speak of Christ. It will at some point become once again subversive to speak of Christ. And that, I can see it already happening. And it's not that, you're going to get crucified or beheaded at this point, but watch how people shut off.
Well,
they've been programmed to not go there. That's old school, that's outdated, blah, blah, blah. So it's being done in a very, very subversive way.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I covered over 250 protests in the last 10 years. I was a key reporter in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and a witness. And I can tell you that there were Satanists that came and they performed rituals and they were carving things into the sides of their fingers and they were all there and they were casting spells and they were trying to tell people, oh, if you're a Christian, you don't believe in dinosaurs. And I stopped them for a second. I said, listen, the word dinosaur wasn't invented till like the 1800s and they were told to replace the word dragon with dinosaur. So like you don't really understand. He just literally converted this person into like not believing his religion. And I came in there and I can't remember his name, but he was one of the top guys in Chop and Chaz, flew into Kenosha, and he's trying to create a Chop and Chaz in Kenosha, and he brought a bunch of Satanists and they did this weird seance, right? And I kid you not, within like about 5 minutes, some guy rolls up on a bicycle and just starts screaming, mentally yells, screw you, F you, F you, F you, as he yells to everyone. And he's causing a problem. There's a circle of people. He wants to fight everyone. And I'm like, geez, that worked fast. like, what do you believe? Like at that point, it's interesting. People, I had a conversation also with a former top Satanist. His name's Eric Freeman. He's in charge of the Anton LaVey and the Crowley estate. And he also has created dress wear for Marilyn Manson. But I asked him his opinion because he looks at people who do the child sacrifice, like the David Koreshes of Christianity. And I asked him, well, do you actually believe the rituals work? And then he looked at me and he goes, well, look at who's in charge, in the world that we live in. And you don't start to think like that, but then you see Bohemian Grove, you see all these weird occults, you're seeing the ritualistic abuse of these children. You got a banker, Jeffrey Epstein, who labels his account Ball. He's hanging out with the Rockefellers, who are also known occultists, just like the Rothschilds, known occultists who claim they came from Nimrod, their own words, not mine. And Nimrod is a sun deity. That's where Baal and maybe it's just another name for Baal and Molech worship, but it's a sun deity like Osiris or Odin, and all these different sun deities are out there. They have different names, and sometimes I think Alexander Hislop was sort of right, although I can see now some of the things he might have been incorrect about. But at the end of the day, these deities, they don't care what you call them. They know what your spirit is and what you believe. That's why those things like talking boards and Ouija boards have always been outlawed. Is it bad? No, it's a tool to contact the angels. There's an L in anything angel. Mike L, Raphael. L means God-like. It means angel. The Masons use it as. But it's interesting because Freemasonry has also come up multiple times in these abuse. I interviewed a female who was basically textbook what Bonacci was saying, She said she was in a military base. She was abused and she was made a sex slave, and they traffic her to elite stars. And she was sending me pictures of these famous movie people that she was trafficked to and musicians. And she said that all they do is they bring out an item that they, like a ring, she said, and when she goes, snaps right into porn star mode, you know, and that's essentially, and she has they film her and it's on the internet, and she said there's nothing that she can do, so she got out of it, but she didn't even want to come forward because she's worried that they were going to pin other people. The minute I said, hey, let's have you on the show, let's talk about this, bring awareness, she goes, no, my life has been fucked up enough, I don't want any additional consequences, so I respected that. But she wrote a piece for The Guardian, and I think ever since then, it was on like Damien Eccles and his involvement in the OTO Satanists and occultism, and that's the same thing, right? Very much the OTOs, they do the trauma bond, it's sexual rituals, just like that Dutch baker who came forward and said, yeah, at first it was cool, it was orgies, it was parties. I was like, oh, what's a little Satanism? Looks atheistic. And then they asked him to sacrifice a baby and drink baby's blood. He's like, hell no, I'm getting out of this. And then he made a video about it. He was a top Dutch baker. It's in the video is still out there. It's like people don't believe this stuff. It's hard to believe. It's hard to swallow.
Yeah, no, he's one of my heroes. There are many, but yeah, that was a really potent interview because you saw his vulnerability, you saw the reality of it for him, and his life is forever changed.
So I want to talk and let our listeners know how they can support you, where they can find out more about you. I want to go ahead and put this on the screen. We're going to put links to everything that you have as well in the bottom of these videos. These videos generally go viral. Sometimes we're going to probably make some reels because that's how everyone learns these days. They watch the reels. Nobody, like, what inspires them to watch the show is the reels of the show. And our belief, or our life beyond MKUltra, then and now. Make sure you guys check out.
So let me explain it. So 15 years ago, I wrote 2 books, Our Life Beyond MKUltra Book 1 and Book 2. This is now, the book he's showing is, I self-published those. This is a publisher. This is logosophiabooks.com. And I do recommend everybody go to them. They're a small publisher in North Carolina. After they published my book, they had some problems. And so I just ask people to support them rather than going to like Amazon or, Barnes and Noble and so forth. If you do it direct, they get a little bit more out of it. So this book is now the 2 books together with updates over a course of 12, 15 years, and all 36 color collages are in the book, which weren't in the first book. They were in black and white and you couldn't make them out. So that's really the best way to support me. I do have a WordPress site called ourlifebeyondmkultra.wordpress.com. There's a lot of free stuff on there. All the collages are on there if you just want to look at those. Lots of articles, my interviews in various places, and so forth.
That being said, I want to thank you on the program because it's really hard to talk about these things, especially somebody who's been through it firsthand. I can't commend your bravery enough and bringing awareness of this because the more I talk to survivors, the more I realize how hard it is to relive these. And not only that, there's always some kind of like adversaries or people that are trying to take you down per se or disprove you, or they'll come out and there are other programs. Everyone is programmed at the end of the day. And I always say that, what you feed your mind is what you grow in your mind. So if you feed your mind GMO news, you're going to grow crops of GMO ideas. And the real thing is to get to the source and get to the understanding. And that video with Bonacci that you had, Paul Bonacci, in the beginning that you sent me was interesting, and I couldn't put it down. I was like, this is everything I've been told, and it's like echoes. It's over and over and over we're getting. So there has to be something going on. Either everyone's, is really like, it's hard to believe that's happening, but it's happening. So there's so many people that are impacted. How many people do you think have been MKUltra, assets for Monarch and Infiltration?
Well, I think the numbers, because of the technology and targeting, I think it's in the billions.
Oh, geez. I could see that.
Yeah, with the targeting, because this can all be done remotely now. I mean, you can, I don't know if I'm sure you know Dr. Robert Duncan. He's passed now, but he wrote books. He was part of developing some
I interviewed him like 10 years ago, I think.
Well, and it's valid. I mean, that book just sent me over the top because of how much related to experiences I was having. But like what he's talking about, you know, you don't have to take someone at birth into a facility and do what they did to someone like me and so many others anymore. They're still going to do it. Okay, that's my argument. They're still going to do it to a certain degree, but it can all be done remotely now. It can be done. They can pick you out of a crowd because you have potentials and certain frequencies that they read, and they start working on you from afar, which is what I believe a lot of the shooters wound up being, is people that were recognized from some other source. And it was done remotely. So it's really important to understand this. This is not just somebody over there and something you can look at and read at, and it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Not anymore. That's what changed. It has changed now. It has to do with every single one of us. And I have some of the updates in there about this in this new book. This came out in 2022. So I do have some of the updates in there. And very, very important to understand that. So
Elisa E, where can our listeners find you? Where can they find out more? We got a minute here, and I want to make sure you get a chance to plug all your stuff. If somebody wants to interview, what a great conversation. And thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. I'm glad that we can have you back on.
I don't really put my email out there publicly.
Sure.
You can go to the WordPress site. I have had things come through. Ilana Freeland, who's a friend of mine, and someone will sometimes reach out to her and say, I want to, reach out to Elisa. And she'll forward it to me. That's not suggested. I don't want to bombard her. She's a very busy person. But yeah, most of my stuff, I've done a lot of interviews. There's that work, and there's the book. So
Elisa E, thank you so much for joining us on the Rundown Live. We are live on groundzeroplus.com. You can find our broadcasts, Spotify, anywhere where broadcasts are carried, iHeartRadio, rumble.com, youtube.com. We got back on YouTube. They've been a little more friendly under this administration. I don't know why, but we haven't been getting censored. All that and a whole bunch more. Thank you guys for tuning in. Elisa E, excuse me. I really appreciate your bravery, and we'll have to have you back on soon. And everyone needs to go pick up her book. Everyone support her. I'm going to pick up a copy myself, and we'll see you guys soon. You're listening to the Rundown Live on Ground Zero Plus. We'll be back tomorrow. Micah, who is joining us? Micah Dank is joining us. We're going to talk astrotheology. So thank you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Rundown Live.
Do you come to Milwaukee often? Actually, it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land. I think one of the most interesting aspects of Milwaukee is the fact that it's the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors. Does this guy know how to party or what?
You heard it here first.
You're listening to the Rundown Live of Kriston Harris and Mike Paczewski. The destroyer of fake news.
Meanwhile, at the American Intelligence Report, what is